It's 1:30. I'd like to call the April 17, 2017 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission to order. Roll call. We'll start with Commissioner Clare.
Here.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Present.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner George.
Here.
And Commissioner Yonkel. Not here. We do have a quorum. Can I have a motion concerning the approval of the minutes of the March 20th, 2017 meeting?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes from March 20th, 2017 from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Report on license taxing and record service for the quarter, January, February, and March. Sergeant.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is the quarterly report. On taxis, we got 46 new drivers permitted, 46 renewed, and 3 had to replace them. Vehicle inspections had 36 passed, 1 failed, had 3 complaints, 1 investigation. Limousines had 4 new drivers, 7 renewed. Carriages, 4 new drivers. Pedicabs, 6 new drivers, 1 renewed. Shuttles, I had 8 new drivers and 8 renewed, and 4 shuttles passed inspection, 1 failed. Oh, and also on carriages, I had 1 failed inspection where I went out for the evening and watched them conduct business. So, any questions?
All right, any questions? All right, thank you very much. There are no items on the consent docket, so we go to item 5A, Sisters for Seniors Transportation Service, to consider an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity from Sisters for Seniors Transportation Service, LLC, to operate 20 non-emergency medical transport vehicles. Anybody here to speak on this item? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
All right, you've got a complete application before you, and staff is recommending approval of the item as presented.
We have a motion concerning item 5A.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hale to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner White. Any discussion? Okay, motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner White. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. We go on now to item 5B, Reliable Medical Services, Inc., doing business as Reliable Medical Transport, Inc., to consider an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity from Reliable Medical Services, Inc., doing business as Reliable Medical Transport, Inc., to operate 3 non-emergency medical transport vehicles. Anybody here to speak on this item? Yes, sir. Please come on up. I already have your form. If I could have you state your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jadoni Waikipiopoda, and I'm the president of Reliable Medical Services Incorporated, doing business as Reliable Medical Transportation. We are here today requesting a certificate of convenient necessity so we can be able to help people in disability, be able to do more stuff in the community instead of just being locked up in 4 walls. Right now we are planning to work with a Goodwill that have a program hiring people in disabilities in Goodwill. So right now with in partnership with the state, that allow us to pick these people up right now and take them to and from work and also to other places. We're also requesting to see if you guys can grant us this certificate so we can more expand and have more vehicles. And also that will help us, bring more, help us hire more people and raise the economy of your city. And these people that will be working for us will be happy that they're doing something good every day by helping and putting smiles into these people's faces, which, most of the time are usually behind four walls that people don't get to know, which are really good and sweet and very love kind people. If anybody have a question, I'll be more than happy to answer those questions.
All right, sir, thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5B? Okay, can we have staff, sir, you may have a seat. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, again, you've got a completed vehicle for hire application, and staff is recommending approval of this item as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Move approval of the application.
We have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner George. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion on 5B? We have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Can I have your votes, please? All right. Thank you, sir. We go on to item 5C, Kristen Willimhan, to consider a request for the addition of a stop control on West Wilshire Boulevard at Greystone Avenue to establish all-way stop control. Anybody here to speak on 5C? Okay, staff input, please.
Okay, earlier today, the applicant contacted us, and she requested this item be continued to the Commission's June meeting.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
Motion to continue to June's meeting.
We have a motion from Commissioner Clare to move item 5C to the June meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion? Motion to move item 5C to the June meeting from Commissioner Clare, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Votes, please. Okay, item has been moved. We go to item 5D. Patricia Erling, President, Crown Heights, Edgemere Heights Neighborhood Association and the Traffic Management Division, to consider two items: to change the speed limit on North Chartel Avenue between Northwest 36th Street and Northwest 50th Street from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour, and two, change the speed limit on North Chartel Avenue between Northwest 50th Street and North Francis Avenue from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. Anybody here to speak on item 5D? Yes, ma'am. If I could have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes, and please fill one of these out when you're done.
Okay.
Did you already fill one out?
I did not fill it out.
Yeah, it'll be up here when you're done.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm Patricia Ailing. I'm the past president of Crown Heights, Edgemere Heights neighborhood. I live at 833 Northwest 41st. And we asked for the speed limit to be reduced in our actual neighborhood, and then I believe staff looked at it, and if that was going to be done, then for it to continue to Northwest 50th, the traffic started getting, of course, in our opinion, a little bit out of control with the lengthy construction on Western. Western was reduced to 25, and so it pushed people over to Chartel and to Walker. Sometimes they weren't very happy, I guess, when they were pushed over that direction. So it's just become a real, to us, a safety concern, the speed limits in our neighborhood. So I actually read all 7 pages of the traffic report, and I can certainly see from a statistical standpoint that it may not be warranted, but I'm just here to appeal upon the life and safety of people using that street, that they are not actually a number. They are actually people using that street. I'm a runner, and I run that street myself, and I can tell you that when a car whizzes by at 30 miles an hour, it can be a scary situation. So not a whole lot can be said when you've got a bunch of numbers that tell you something's not warranted, but as a representative of our neighborhood and in care and concern for our neighbors, we're asking it to be reduced.
All right, thank you, ma'am. If you go ahead and fill that out while we press on. Anybody else to speak on item 5D? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
Okay, you've got our full report before you. As the applicant noted, we had submitted an additional part to this, which is identified as Part 2, and that's looking at reducing the speed limit on Chartel on the north side of 50th, where it curves and then terminates into Francis. And this is at a point where it would be, Chartel would be cut off by I-44. You've got the numbers before you. You've got the 85th percentile speed is basically running at the posted speed limit, which is 30 miles an hour. We found an 85th percentile of 31 miles an hour. There's no unusual collision trends within the neighborhood. So in the absence of anything that would indicate that speed is an issue on this particular roadway, action on this item will be at the discretion of the commission.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
I move for approval.
We have a motion to approve item 5D from Commissioner Littlefield
Second.
and seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on this item?
I travel that street often, and there are always pedestrians. There are folks pushing babies, there are people walking dogs, there are people riding bikes, there are people jogging day and night. And however we want to define it, I see this street as a neighborhood street, and I see absolutely no reason why the speed limit couldn't be reduced to 25 miles an hour for not only the safety, but just the idea of calming the traffic.
Okay, any other talk on item 5D? Yes, sir.
I would like to, it's my observation too, that the street is heavily used by pedestrians, and there are no sidewalks. So, I mean, we do have bike lanes, but people don't have a choice. They have to be in the street because there are no sidewalks. So I do think that the lowering of the speed limit is warranted.
Okay, any other discussion on 5D? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5D by Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. We're on now to 5E, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson & Associates, Inc., to consider requests for the addition of stop control on North Châtel Avenue at Northwest 15th Street to establish all-way stop control. Mr. Johnson, would you like to go first, or you want to defer? Okay. Have you already filled out one of these, sir?
I have.
Okay. If I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Sure. David Box, 504 Northwest 15th Street. I'm here today on behalf of the applicants. Also with me is Tim Johnson and Mark Zitzow. Johnson & Associates has done a lot of work on this project, and item E is a companion item to F, to G, and to H. And perhaps most importantly, also with me is my daughter, Maris, who is also at 504 Northwest 15th. And that's really why I'm here. I'm here on behalf of these neighborhoods as a public service. This neighborhood, Heritage Hills and Mesta and Heritage Hills East, has gone a dynamic transformation over the last several years to having an enormous amount of young families move back into this area. And it's a wonderful thing. But one of the issues is, as you drive through the neighborhood and the area, there are these intersections where you have two-way stops, some are four-way, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason why some aren't four-way and some are. And particularly, some of the north-south interceptors have heavy traffic at high rates of speed. All of that to say is we need to slow them down, and that is the only intent of this application, is to provide stop signs within the neighborhoods that will slow traffic down. Now, there's a host of people here. Everyone that's here in support, I'd ask you to stand up. Another child. Wonderful. And that's what this is about. The last presentation said the same thing, that it's about safety. And that's why we're here. This is a project that's been worked on with the neighborhood as well as Johnson's office for a long time. And what we were told every time is to go get more signatures, go get more signatures. So Mr. Zitzow with Tim's office is going to go through what he did. But he canvassed the area for 4 separate days. And what this map represents are all the different houses he was able to speak to. So if it's gray, it means that we weren't actually able to make contact with anyone. It could be that they were gone, but again, he was there 4 days. Or there are some houses that no one's currently living there. Everything in blue means somebody actually signed their name to a support petition. There were 632 people actually surveyed. And what we found was 626 people signed the support petition. In the day and time that we live, you can't get 626 people to agree on anything, much less burdening their neighborhood with additional stop signs. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind, that what we're asking to do is to burden ourselves with more stop controls. This is the will of the neighborhood. Now, of the 6 signatures that were not in favor of this, I'll tell you one of them was totally in support of his stop sign, but he didn't want stop signs in the rest of the neighborhood. 2 of the addresses were a developer, and he didn't like that it took him and his crew longer to drive through the neighborhood while he's building and doing work, but he's not a resident. So I would submit that of the 632 people we surveyed, there were only 2, and I'm not aware of the circumstances surrounding that, that weren't in favor. I think that's significant. And when you look at within 300 feet of each intersection, again, it's significant support. Now, the threshold of 67%, I'll let Tim talk about the details, but there were a couple that we never got to 67%. But there are some unique factors in those. Here at Robinson and 15th, there are multifamily. These are multifamily dwellings. So there was no way for us to actually collect the signatures necessary to get over the 67%. Again, if you go a block north, same scenario. At 17th and Robinson, again, you have 2 multifamily buildings that it is an impossibility. Mark tried 4 separate times, and there just wasn't a way to do that. So I think on total here, you have an application that will help the neighborhood, it will slow traffic down, and it will provide the necessary safety for all the young families that are moving back into this area that is making this area what it is. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I do want to allow Mr. Zitzow to kind of discuss his process, and then finally, Mr. Johnson to go through I believe, the MUTC data.
Well, sir, just one point, if I may. We're only talking about one item right now.
Sure.
I understood you went over the whole spiel. Which item are we talking about on that map?
Let's see. E is at Chartel and 15th. So the 3 separate items are all in green. So here's item E right here, and then we'll have the F and G are right here, but right here. And we do meet the 67% criteria in terms of signatures on that. But yes, as an economy of time, I was trying to.
No, that's perfect. No, that's fine to go ahead and give the full overall summary of that. Let me just ask the counselor just a second. All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we could get input from everybody on E, but even if they wanted to talk about the other ones that's come, which is that whole neighborhood.
Right.
So what we'll do is just combine all the statements at one time, just like you did.
Sure.
We just have to remember that we're only talking about one item, which is item E, which is that bottom left one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go through the process here. As long as when you talk, you are including E in your talk of the whole neighborhood, then we're okay with that.
Would you permit us to have next Mr. Zitzow?
Yeah, we'll go through the process.
Very good.
All right,
I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any information.
I just wanted to clarify all that. So let's go on to the next one. So if I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. David touched on some of it. I spent approximately 15 to 20 hours on 2 separate weekends walking the neighborhood. And the city, or the neighborhood, did a great job of collecting a lot of signatures before we had gotten involved. So this was all the different petitions. As David said, it was 626. I only heard from a few people that were against the proposal. And as David mentioned, a couple were developers, and a couple supported the stop sign at their intersection closest to their home, but not the overall plan, and refused to sign, which is how we ended up with the no. So of the surveyed, we reach 99% support because people live this every day and see the high speed and the cut through traffic that's occurring in their neighborhood. So, however, as David said, a few intersections we fell short of the 67% support. And I have a few exhibits that I wanted to share that kind of showed what happened at those spots. So at 22nd and Hudson, what you have, we submitted this application and we were sent back a list of addresses to to try and get additional signatures for to hit the 67%. What you have here is, looking at the city website and city data, this one multifamily building had 3 addresses assigned to it that we were asked to get signatures for. So it's one property, but it had 3 addresses. If you remove those 3 addresses, we would have achieved the 67% support. So this happened in multiple spots: 22nd and Hudson, 17th and Robinson. Again, were multifamily buildings that we could not get access to because they were locked. And again, at 15th and Robinson. Those were all intersections that we fell short, according to the petition. However, again, if you remove the multifamily buildings and the address duplication, we would meet those, the requirement. While the petition may not be your only guiding factor, we believe that the support we received not only exceeds the minimum, but it shows the overwhelming support. So with that, if you have no questions for me, I'll turn it over to Tim, who's going to talk about the MUTC guideline.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, I already have a blue form on you. Can I have your name, address? You have up to 5 minutes, sir.
Yes, Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue, Oklahoma City. As David mentioned, I was at the meeting where Heritage Hills had come on their own after having submitted a traffic study that was done in August of 2015. They paid a lot of money for this and came out with some recommendations to help their neighborhood calm traffic and deal with issues that had been troublesome to the neighborhood. That's kind of a master plan, and the first step in that was that they had made application for several stop signs, and several of them were a tie vote, 4-4, before Ms. Yockel said, time out, maybe these people need to take a hiatus, which they did. They took an indefinite continuance. David and I got involved. As Mark mentioned, we walked the neighborhood and looked at the data, looked at what TEC had provided, which is good data. We actually ran some speed counts recently, took a very narrow window, and our 85th percentile on a 24-hour basis was 30 miles an hour on Chartel and Walker. And David touched on this a little bit, and I'm sure the neighbors can touch on this greater than I can, but over the last 10 years, the traffic transition in leaving downtown Oklahoma City has changed drastically. You move the highway south, you've got new businesses, vibrant downtown, and people wanting to come and go from downtown in alternate routes besides 235 that's been under construction for 10 years. And so they seek a route to filter their way up north to find an alternate route to get on the highway. Probably most people made it to 50th and then jumped on 235. A lot of people use Lincoln, a lot of people use Classen now too. But it's a learning process. Traffic has to learn its way through. And so as our city has changed, the traffic through Heritage Hills has changed. And Heritage Hills is not trying to deter people from going through the neighborhood, but to do it at a more calm and safe mode. We can talk about MUTCD facts all day long, but it's a recommendation. And it really puts a lot back on the designer as to what you're supposed to do that takes the safety of not only the vehicular traffic, but the pedestrian traffic in mind. And that's what we're doing. We're looking at ways to put four-way stops so that you can have legal crosswalks. The times that I've spent working on this job in that neighborhood, any time of day, there's always somebody jogging, somebody walking. It's amazing, the transformation. I lived there 29 years ago, and it was all old people. I had the only family with a bunch of kids. So we ended up moving away because I outgrew the house. But I wish we were still there. It's a lot of young families, a lot of kids. My kids at times were the only kids in Mesta Park. There just wasn't a lot of kids there. So it's gone through a drastic change. Property values have increased, and it's been a good time for these three neighborhoods. And they would like to reap that and continue to be a safe neighborhood with a grid system like this was originally designed 100 years ago. We wouldn't allow this to happen today on our section line roads, but it's there, so we want to make the best of it. So I can answer any questions you'd like about the studies we've done, the counts we've done, or anything like that, but it's supportive of slowing traffic down.
All right, sir. Is there anybody else from your staff or anything?
Not from my staff. I know there's people signed up from the...
Correct. Okay. So as far as this package of people that want to speak, I would ask that if you wanted to come up and talk, that's fine. You do have your time. But if you're going to concur with something that was already said, please just refer us back to that and not say it again. I would like to start with the neighborhood president, probably. Does that sound okay to you guys? Nancy? Would you like to start, or you want to defer? Okay, we'll start with you, and then we'll press on through. Just remember, item E is the one up on the talk, but we can talk about the whole neighborhood.
Okay.
So if I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Nancy Nagel. I'm president of HPI. And of utmost importance to our neighborhood is Wilson School. We are very concerned about our children walking to and from school. We enjoy having people bicycle, jog, and walk in our neighborhood, and we have more of it every day. We enjoy having people come to our neighborhood. We have sidewalks. We like people walking in our neighborhood, but we, with the increase in the traffic, the change in the surrounding neighborhood of Midtown and downtown, we are seriously concerned with the safety of our neighborhood. So this, the item that we were discussing, as well as all the other stop signs for the safety of our neighborhood, is of utmost importance to us.
All right, thank you. Would we have somebody who wants to volunteer to go next? All right, sir. If I could have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, Commissioners. I'm Don Steele, Mesta Park President, 912 Northwest 16th Street. First of all, we'd like to thank you guys. The city has done a great job. We've had our streets repaved. They make them smoother. They also make people drive a little faster. We've also had all new sidewalks. You know, we had sidewalks on our street that were, you could not get down. Now our whole neighborhood is full of new great sidewalks. As David Box mentioned, families are moving in. We moved in 10 years ago. We've lived there 10 years. We were the first family on the block. On our one block, we now have 27 kids. On one block, 27 kids. And our kids don't play in the backyards. We are not a backyard neighborhood. We are a front yard neighborhood. People sit on our porches. We watch our kids play in our front yard. We understand some of the numbers don't meet the criteria, but we ask, it's so pedestrian friendly, so walkable, that you guys consider slowing the traffic down and helping us keep our kids safe. And also, Nancy mentioned Wilson, but let's not forget Classen. People cross, that's a lot of our students go to Classen. They walk to Classen. It's 9 to 4. So they're walking home at 4 or 4:30 during rush hour traffic when people are getting home, and that's really dangerous. So we would really ask for your agreement and concurrence on items E through H, all of them. So thank you.
Okay. Somebody else want to come on up? Yes, sir. If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
My name is Bill Carey. We've met before a few months ago. And I live at 326 Northwest 16th. I've lived in Mesta Park or Heritage Hills since 1975, so I've seen some traffic. But I want to give you a little bit of background. This is a three-neighborhood effort. We brought a committee together from each of the three boards 3 or 4 years ago, and that in itself is kind of a continuation of the traffic problems we addressed in 1985. But I won't bore you with that history. But our committee met diligently for months, arriving at consensus items for a master plan to deal with the traffic in the neighborhood, knowing full well that with all the great stuff that's going on around us, and we mean that the traffic was just going to increase and probably get faster, and our safety of the neighborhood go down. So we built a consensus, took it to all three boards, and it was approved. These 19 intersections are part of an overall effort that we want to bring but it's probably the most important part of the program in slowing things down. I think that's really all I have to say. I will say that if there's been some scuttlebutt about these neighborhoods asking for the city to pay for these improvements. Our neighborhoods over the years have put in our own sidewalks in a cooperative program. We've planted trees. We pay for the maintenance and the landscaping of our parks and medians, the sprinkler systems, and we maintain it all, street lights, and we love to do it. We know it enhances the neighborhood. And so I wouldn't, I'm told it's about $6,000 to put these stop signs in. I'll raise that money to put them in and reimburse the city if you'll simply approve it for us. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Who else would like to come on up? So if I could have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Certainly. My name's Afton Gilly, and I live at 1013 Northwest 18th. I've lived in Mesta Park for approximately 12 years, I believe. I'm going to actually take a very unpopular stand on this issue. Apparently everybody else in the room seems to be for it. I feel that this is not necessary. It does not meet the criteria of the traffic guidelines. And I believe that one of the things that people are saying, it's to deter the traffic. And to me, this is going to make our neighborhood less desirable to live in. It's going to lower the value of our properties. And the speed limit being 25 miles an hour, I live on 18th Street, one of the very busiest streets there, and I do not see speeding and all these kinds of things. I don't see that it's dangerous. My wife and I walk in the evenings, and we love Mesta Park. We absolutely love it. I think this is overkill, and I think it's not necessary. It's, the stop sign on 15th Street is going to take away 9 parking spots. It's detrimental to our neighborhood. The other thing I see that it will do is it may start people doing jackrabbit starts and stops. It's going to be more wear and tear on the people's cars that are in the neighborhood. It's a waste of gasoline to stop at every stop. All these extra stops that are not not necessary. If we need to if there are places that people are speeding, we need to just enforce the law that's there. Okay. If you're having people stop and it's monotonous to stop, you're going to have people ignoring and running through the stop signs, and then you have people that are counting on people to stop, and they're not going to be stopping because they're going to be annoyed by all the stop signs. So I'm really taking a stand, and I think it's a better stand, and backed by, like I say, the studies that have been done. And I'm for the neighborhood. I'm for our neighborhood being the best neighborhood and being beautiful. We love, like I say, we love to take walks. We love we drive around the neighborhood in the evening and after work, and we enjoy the neighborhood. But these additional stop signs, I do not feel are necessary. They're an expense. They'll be add expense to everybody, and it will deter people from wanting to move into our neighborhood. And I feel that it's a wrong thing to do.
All right. Yes, sir, if you could fill out one of the forms for me. Okay, next, ma'am. If I could have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Katie Leffel, and I live at 416 Northwest 21st Street. I want to first start by thanking you all for your service to our city and your time. I want to speak very specifically about the area surrounding Wilson School. I have 2 children who have attended Wilson since 2009. I live 6 houses down from the school at the only 4-way stop that surrounds the school. And I still see on a weekly basis people who are speeding through the area during the time that we have many, many children walking and biking to school. We have those problems after school as well. The fact that we have no stop sign at the corner of Walker and 22nd Street is of great concern to me. Right now, we are lucky enough to have a parent volunteer from Wilson School who is willing to do the crossing guard job. As I'm sure you all know, finding crossing guards in this city is a very difficult task. It's, pays almost nothing. The hours are terrible. The weather, is an issue as well. But we don't always have someone there. We're lucky enough that we have someone who's there some of the time. That's a street that kids cross every day when they're dropped off by their parents, when they're walking by themselves. We have the same issue at the alternate corners on Dewey, both at 22nd and 21st. We only have two-way stops. These are intersections that kids have to cross to get to school. I've seen so many people blowing through the area on their cell phone, rushing late to work. They're not paying attention. And because you get to the school so quickly off 23rd Street, I think most people don't realize that they're in a school zone until they're basically running through the intersection where the crossing guard stands, if that makes sense. So although the posted neighborhood speed limit is 25 miles an hour, those of us that walk daily in our neighborhood know that most people in the neighborhood do not travel at 25 miles an hour, especially in the morning when they're on their way to work. It's an issue in the afternoon time, too, when kids are letting out of school. That's a time when even more kids are on their own heading home, because we do live in a wonderful neighborhood that has sidewalks, that overall is pretty safe for kids. We have a lot of families who use the option of having their kids walk or bike home. And again, they're faced with that safety issue of a carpool line down Dewey, no stop sign to stop people who are trying to go around cars to avoid that traffic. And we're getting ready to start a construction maps problem on our school, which is only going to amplify the entire situation. So although I'm in support of the entire plan and all the intersection stop signs that are listed above, I wanted to take some time to speak specifically from a parent perspective and a sometimes substitute teacher perspective for Wilson School. I spend a lot of time there and care a great deal about the 350 kids that need to get to and from school safely there every day. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Next, who would like to come up? I'll start calling names. Let's see. This is for E. Mava, would you like to come up and talk? Okay. If you have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes, ma'am.
Marva Ellard, 1521 North Chartel, and I'm only up here because I live on Chartel, and that is the first item on your agenda. We've lived in Mesta Parker Heritage Hill since 1981, and we've lived on 18th and Chartel, which are probably two of the busiest streets in the area. And although we're three neighborhoods technically, we're pretty much one big neighborhood full of cats, dogs, little people, big people, old people, young people, and some we like and some we don't, but we all live there together. And the traffic has gotten a lot heavier in the last few years, but I don't think you'll find an area of town that is more supportive of the growth in downtown and the surrounding areas than Mesta, Heritage Hills East, and Heritage Hills. We don't just talk the talk, we walk the talk. And we want to be able to walk, and we need stop signs so we can walk, and we can bike, and we can take kids to school, and we can walk to the grocery store, and we can walk to the restaurants in Midtown and Uptown and all the other places that we've supported all these years. And we ask for your help. And so I ask for you to support our application.
All right, thank you. I have three more. If you just want to come up, we got Shannon, I believe. Oh. All right, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, you stood up. You can come on up. If I can have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Corinne Simon, 900 Northwest 16th Street. I would like to concur with the other speakers, except for the one gentleman who was in opposition of the favor. I have two young children, one who attends Wilson Elementary, and I would just like to reemphasize the fact that we are a front porch community. We are always outside. We are walking, biking, and then I would just like to add on that we have the wonderful Memorial Marathon coming up, and I don't know, there's a lot of people that don't live in our neighborhood that come and run through the neighborhood in practice of the marathon, and I worry about their safety issue as well. So From a neighborhood standpoint and a community standpoint, I ask you to pass all the measures in favor of the stop signs. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I have one more, Caleb Morgan. You're good, okay. Yes, I was just going to open it up. So, ma'am, if I could have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes, and please fill out a form when you're done.
My name's Melinda Irwin, and I have lived in Heritage Ermesta since 1992. And I probably walk more than anyone in the neighborhood. And I have 2 dogs. And as far as the 15th and Chartel, the only stop sign, I live at 405 16th. So for me to cross Chartel, that's the only place with the stop sign is 16th and Chartel. So I highly support the 15th and Chartel one because people come around that curve off of 13th, not doing 25 or 30 miles an hour. They're doing 40 or 45. And when I-40 moved, I agree, a lot of the traffic started moving, coming up Walker, coming up Chartel, just as a deterrent because I-40 went so far south. So I support all the stop signs. I don't agree. I feel like it's unsafe for me to walk during 8 a.m., 5 p.m., and it wasn't like that 15 years ago. It wasn't like that, but the last 3 to 5 years have just been, I can't tell you how many times I've almost been ran over. Today I was walking to the Midtown Y at lunch, and a guy just ran the stop sign at 15th and Walker. Didn't even slow down. And it's one of the few stop signs on Walker. So I argue that if people were already stopping at the other stop signs, he would have known there was going to be another stop sign coming up. I mean, he didn't even, just blew through it. So I just highly support the whole project as a neighbor and an avid walker. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak? Ma'am, if I could have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes, and please fill out a form when you're done.
My name is Paula Lewis. I live at 130 Northwest 21st Street. I have 2 children. I have one that catches a bus at 19th and Hudson that goes to Northwest Classen, one that started kindergarten at Wilson. I'm also recently elected the school board chair for Oklahoma City Public School District. So definitely have a vested interest in safety in these kids. And on my street on 21st, I live in Heritage Hills, what would be considered east, and we have 8 children under the age of 6 on our little bitty portion of the street right there, and they're all aiming to go there. I walk every day. We cross Robinson very safely every day because cars fly down our streets. And I've been the parent volunteer before on 22nd and Walker with my first child. I did that about 5 years ago, and people will almost hit the adult. And it is hard because you come into our neighborhood and you don't know how quick you're going to be there. We are a great neighborhood, and I don't think for any shape or form that we would be a great neighborhood without our schools, and we can't have kids get hurt going to school, and we can't have kids get hurt when they're trying to go to the park, because that's what makes us community is our park and our school. So I would definitely agree with all the stop signs, and I would hope you would consider their request. Thank you.
All right. Ma'am? 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 Oh, if you could fill out one of the blue forms for us. All right. Anybody else wanted to speak? Yes, sir. Please, come on up. If I could have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes, and please fill out a form when you're done.
My name is Mark Pogmiller, and I live at 420 Northwest 21st Street. And I, too, have a son that's currently going to Wilson Elementary School. Next year I'll have 2 sons that go there, and we like to walk. I'm also a pediatrician, so I always like to look at things from a preventative standpoint. And 2 things that I really just want to make sure I point out. I'm in support of the whole thing, but the 2 things that I've never quite understood since living here. So this is my 4th state that I've lived in since I've been of driving age, and I don't understand intersecting streets with a yield sign in a neighborhood. That just doesn't make sense, and we have a bunch of them in our neighborhood. The intersecting streets with a yield sign is only to expedite the cars going faster through there. I mean, there's no purpose. I've never had anyone be able to explain to me why that's a good idea. Maybe in the rural places where there's no one, but in a downtown neighborhood, just doesn't make sense. The other thing is from the standpoint of the school, is that we have Mesta Park, which is a great park. A lot of people go to that, and there's a 4-way stop sign on all 4 corners of that park. Then we have an elementary school where a lot of kids go to and walk to that also has playground equipment that people use as a park outside of business hours. And there's not a four-way stop on all four corners of an elementary school. And that dichotomy there just also does not make sense to me. So intersecting streets with the yield sign, I can't find a reason for that, and not having four-way stops on all four corners of an elementary school, a neighborhood elementary school where there are lots and lots of walkers. So it just, especially over Walker, which seems to be one of the more common streets people like to take. And that's the school is on, two of those corners is on Walker. So that's my piece.
All right. All right, anybody else wanted to speak? Again, we're talking about item 5E specifically, but in general, the whole neighborhood plan. Anything else? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
All right. You've got our comments before you. The one thing I'd like to highlight about this particular case is with the addition of stop control on all approaches at 15th and Chartel, it will be necessary to remove parking spaces that would be physically within the limits of the stop-controlled intersection. So action on this item is going to be at the discretion of the Commission. I have to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so that's not in a motion item, that's just a fact that if this got approved, it would lose 9 spaces.
That's correct, because that would be in accordance with other municipal codes and state law.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5E?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the action.
Of 5E?
Of 5E.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5E from Commissioner Schuline.
Second.
And we have a second by Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have anybody who want to speak on this item? Sir?
Since the decision was made by council that we could discuss the whole neighborhood in general, are the commissioners permitted to do that at this point, or do we only talk about the item,
the
specific item?
Since you will be taking action on each individual item, you can reserve your comments as each item comes up.
But I think he's asking the other side, can he just talk in general of the whole neighborhood while discussing this item?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that you will take action on each item, so he could just speak as each item comes up.
But could he talk about this talk that we got about the whole neighborhood? Can we just bring up the whole?
If he would like to do that.
So yes, sir. So if you want to, you can just talk about item 5E, but if you want to talk about the whole neighborhood plan as it was given to us, you can also talk about that too.
I remember when I was in my 20s, I was in downtown Oklahoma City for some reason and had to go north for some reason, and I took a cab. And that cab, I'll bet that cab went 60 miles an hour down Walker back in probably late 70s or early 80s. I lived in Heritage Hills for 14 years in the early 80s. And I remember, and Tim may be able to help clarify this a little bit, there was a traffic calming effort that started at that time along Broadway, where there were cachanes or curb bump outs or something installed. The neighborhood went through an evolution when I lived there where individual property owners volunteered to install and pay for the electricity for street lighting. That happened. I remember sidewalks happening. I remember an era where Walker, Hudson, Harvey, perhaps, were one-way traffic. It was designed at the time to get traffic through the neighborhood and not respect the neighborhood. And what I've witnessed and what I believe and what I think that we all might agree to understand is this has been a 30-year traffic calming program in a neighborhood. It started way back in 1985 with the cachanes. It's evolved with sidewalks. All the elements that we've talked about that calm traffic in neighborhoods are happening in here. Sidewalks, trees, people parking on the streets. When I look at applications for stop signs in neighborhoods, constantly, we're looking at one individual stop sign in a neighborhood. But if you look at page 15, look at all the stop signs in this neighborhood. There are, how many? Can't even tell. This is not an application for a few stop signs in a neighborhood. This is an application to finish off a traffic calming program where stop signs are an element of the program. And I'm totally 100% in support of it. Not because it's stop sign applications, but because it's finishing off a traffic calming product that I believe will be successful and effective.
Okay, anybody else wanted to speak? Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Are there any speed humps in the neighborhood? Would you be receptive to speed humps as a traffic calming device?
Isn't that against the...
I don't think staff would approve them.
Huh?
Staff wouldn't approve them, from what we understand, but...
Well, at this point in time, the commission's still working to develop a neighborhood traffic calming program, and one element in that program would be the use of speed humps. But the program does not exist yet, so at this point in time, they're not yet available.
Well, it's something, I know we're working on traffic calming program, but speed humps, the stop signs, I'm sure y'all know that studies have shown that stop signs, people will only speed between them. They'll stop and then they'll speed up because people travel by time most of the time. Speed humps definitely will deter vehicle speed because they can't traverse them. So that is one of the most common traffic calming items that's enforced today that's being used as a countermeasure.
Well, it's just...
It doesn't seem really prudent at this point to talk about an option that doesn't exist to us.
Right. Well, right. So,
well, it might affect our decision here because we know what might be coming.
And I respect that, but it's not here now, and so all we can do is what we believe to be the best solution right now.
For now.
And if the program exists, well, then perhaps the neighbor can address that at the time.
But my question is, would you be amenable for speed humps in your neighborhood in lieu of four-way stop signs if they did a better job of controlling the cut-through traffic as well as the speed, and probably more compliance with the other stop signs?
Yeah, when and if that becomes a possibility, we welcome the opportunity to sit down with staff and see all the options that might be available at the time.
Very good. Very good.
okay, ma'am, did you want to address? If you come on up to the microphone, please. We already have your name and information, so go ahead and speak, ma'am.
I would just like to specifically address Mr. Miller's point about stopping and speeding up. The whole point of the stop signs to increase the number of stop signs is so basic physics and science says that a car can only speed up in a certain amount of time. So if you have to stop more often, there's just an impossibility if you actually stop at the stop sign to reach a higher mile per hour. If you have a longer distance, even the slowest car can reach that high distance. So unless we have a bunch of Ferraris racing around the neighborhood, there won't be a quick speed through the neighborhood by adding the stop signs, especially by Wilson Elementary, where over 300 children attend and many walk and ride their bikes to school.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I believe that stop signs in a congested fashion do calm traffic. We've seen videos in the traffic calming subcommittee where a stop sign was placed in a particular neighborhood. They had far greater distances between them than these do. And most every vehicle at least slowed down. One or two ran it, but at least people slow down if they don't completely stop. The other thing that I believe is important to consider is the massive number of existing stop controls in this neighborhood and its density and the inconsistency. There's stop signs missing where there should be stop signs to maintain consistency for a driver when they're going from 10th all the way up to 23rd. I believe that this is a beneficial application for calming traffic with the use of a stop sign in conjunction with the other traffic calming elements that have already a lot of hard work went into and they're in place. So I think it's a great opportunity, a classic example of traffic calming in a neighborhood that's necessary. See how it works. I believe it'll work.
Okay, sir?
Well, let me just,
Okay, would you like to finish your thought?
I want to finish my thought. I know what you're saying, Commissioner, but from my perspective, a stop sign is not an item for calming traffic. It's not considered a traffic calming countermeasure. Speed humps, chicanes, and bubbles and circles are. Stop signs are set up in the manual uniform traffic control devices to assign right-of-way, and we expect traffic to respect them when they see one. So if you violate that driver's expectancy and put them where they're not warranted, then it's like you said, they're going to start running them, and then do you have the enforcement people to take care of that? I mean, it's just a fact of life that that's the way they operate. So I'm just saying, I'm not sure you really want what you're asking for, but it's probably all you've got to ask for.
I have to respectfully disagree. I made it a point last week to go out and drive it as if those stop signs existed. And it makes it very drivable. It's a stop sign every 2 blocks. It's consistent throughout, makes it consistent throughout the neighborhood. It's half as many stop signs as we have going east and west after we put these in. It's less than 22% of the intersections that we have in the neighborhood. Come on, it's not a massive conflagration of stop signs. It's simply not, and it drives really well. Now, if somebody is intent on speeding through the neighborhood, they're probably going to do that anyway, and hopefully they get caught and ticketed. But anyway, I just have to disagree with you. Thank you.
Okay, everybody wait a second here. We have a person who wants to speak about the current topic. Yes, sir.
I have to say that in the beginning, I was all for this. I was for the whole thing. I actually signed the petition, but, after I've really thought about it a lot, I really had to change my mind. And like you say, I don't think that we should be using stop signs as trying to control the speed, because if somebody's late and they have a ton of stop signs to go through, they are going to speed, and they're going to float the stop signs, and it's going to be and it's also going to add to the congestion. You think you have, right now, you have the traffic flowing at a fairly steady speed, but it's a safe speed. And now if you stop them all the time, now you're going to have traffic backing up. You're going to have people getting frustrated. And again, they're going to get behind schedule, and they're going to start speeding and be more dangerous. So, if you really want to, if the next step would be, if you go with stop signs, well, why not stop lights? Then you could sync them together, and you could get the traffic flowing together, and you could stop them at the same time. And then you would have the walk signs flashing for people to walk, and you could say, oh, look, it's time to walk now. If you want safety, then put up like they did on 23rd Street. They have a crosswalk on 23rd Street now that has a stoplight. And if you want to go there, that's where this is headed. But I think we are okay with what we have if we just enforce the laws, enforce the speed limits, and I think we're trying to go somewhere we don't need to go, and I don't think that stop signs are the right answer.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Commissioner Schuline. He has his finger on the button.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my estimation, I don't think the purpose is to use the stop signs to slow traffic. It's to reduce cut-through traffic. I think the plan the neighborhoods have put forward proposes most of the stop signs in the perimeter of the neighborhood, where when you first enter the neighborhood, you realize you're leaving the commercial district and you're entering a residential neighborhood. So I think the purpose of the stop signs is really to change driver behavior, encourage people to use the collector streets, use Broadway and Classen and the other streets instead of cutting through the neighborhood. And while it may not be the best example, but I think any of us, everyone up here would agree that you're going to give second thoughts before you drive through Nichols Hills, because not only do they have all these traffic calming measures, which are very effective, including stop signs, but they also have selective enforcement. So I think that I'd see a similar thing, that we would encourage drivers to change their patterns of driving to downtown, in and out of downtown, and use the collector streets and not necessarily cut through on neighborhood streets.
Yes, sir.
what the commissioner just said really goes to the root of when this was very originally presented to us. And it really wasn't about safety. It was about keeping traffic out of the neighborhood, if I remember correctly. And that was to deter traffic, that there would be so many stop signs that they would find alternate routes and therefore preserve the historical value of the neighborhood. Is that basically the way it was very first presented to us? The problem I have with that is the unintended consequences of doing that. What happens to the arterial streets that these people are having to go to? And if you take away these exits out of downtown, where do they go, and what is the effect that you're going to have on those streets and that kind of traffic? When the lady was up and she was talking about they blew through the stop sign at 15th and Chartel, I believe is the intersection. How many more times are we going to see that happen with the addition of these stop signs that really, according to all the surveys, shouldn't be there? What's going to be the effect of traffic when you've got the majority of traffic coming down Walker stopping at these intersections that there's no other traffic due to the volume of traffic going through each one of them? At this point in time, I really don't support it because it really doesn't make good traffic sense. Thank you.
All right, so, yes, sir.
Just briefly, as to what was the original intent, I have no idea. I wasn't involved at that time. I got on later, and I'm speaking as the attorney for the neighborhood, but as a homeowner in the area. So I can tell you the only concern I have is not putting people in the arterials, but rather putting people that are in the neighborhood at a slower pace and getting them to stop. Now, if we operate from a standpoint where, well, people are going to stop anyways, well, then why do we have speed limits? Just get rid of all of it. We just assume everyone's going to violate the law at all times. Well, then why do we have any of it? I mean, we have to come from a position where we believe people are going to follow the law. And to the question as to what happens to the arterials, well, if people do choose to go around it, that's what the collectors and the arterials are designed for, are the heavier traffic volume. So if people do choose to go that route, they're choosing to go the route that the streets were designed and constructed specifically for that purpose.
Okay, thank you. We have a new speaker. So, sir, if I could have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes to make sure to fill out a form.
Thank you. Bill Wiggins, 1515 Classen Drive. Having been here previously when the plan was first presented, Bill Carey and a number of other members of Heritage Hills have put a lot of time and effort. And this plan did start as the safety for the neighborhood, looking at the whole picture. Last meeting that we had, we stopped because of the concerns on the arterial, where we were not allowed to remove some lights to facilitate further traffic on the arteries, on the boundaries, not to have the cut-throughs because of the safety factor of that. You know, our family, we've raised 2 children there on Classen Drive, been part of the neighborhood since 1984, and we've seen this. If you go down, I defy anyone to go down Northwest 13th anytime during the day and try to hit those lights. You know, it's 35 miles an hour along Northwest 13th. Broadway is 30. There are no stop signs, no stoplights from Northwest 13th down to 23rd, and it's all a downhill. If we had the facility, 30 miles an hour on Broadway is strictly enforced. We have police officers there. They maintain that. Had we been allowed to remove some of the traffic lights along Northwest 13th, we would have had more of a facility for moving on the arterial routes, keeping the children in our neighborhood going to school, playing in the parks, going to their neighbors' houses, their friends' houses, and would have facilitated, again, the safety of the people involved in our neighborhood. That's all we tried to do from the beginning. Mr. Carey and others have put a lot of time into this plan. We're looking now at the core of our plan. This is the safety element of everything we're doing. We've been here before. You know, we've come again because this is really an important issue to us and our families. Thank you.
Sir, if you fill out a form, thank you. Okay, any more traffic commissioners? Yes, sir.
Why in the world would any group of people not agree and understand that neighborhoods have streets that are public and anybody can use them, but neighborhoods own the right to calm the traffic in their neighborhoods. I can't imagine myself agreeing to approve or disapprove something that increases and permits cut-through traffic into a neighborhood. And in the years that I've sat on this commission, I've never seen this many neighbors in an organized way come before this commission asking for something that they believe is in their behalf. It's a handful of stop signs. The cost is $6,000 or whatever was mentioned. They've even offered to pay for them. I just don't see any sense in disapproving those.
Okay. Any other traffic commissioners? Yes, sir.
I want to address the gentleman's issue about the yield signs. You know, yield signs they were invented in Oklahoma, Tulsa. Did you know that? City of Tulsa. Now let me tell you why they were. They had people running stop signs, floating through them, and they couldn't enforce them. So they said, we need something that'll accommodate the way traffic is actually driving. So, well, let's just put a yield sign. If nobody's coming, just keep going. And that's how they got, and they're in the National Manual, Uniform Traffic Control Device. You'll see them in every state in the nation.
Okay. Any other traffic commissioners want to speak on item 5E? Yes, sir.
My thoughts are, if we were all, if we had a clean slate and this neighborhood didn't sit where it sits, obviously it wouldn't be allowed to be designed the way it is, where it's right on the grid, correct? Right? So, when you have these neighborhoods that have developed right along the grid, and particularly these neighborhoods that have so much historical significance and beauty and character that adds to our city, then certainly you can look at the numbers, you can say, well, maybe the stop signs don't fit, but certainly because it doesn't fit, largely because nothing fits when you have a high-density neighborhood built on the grid. So it, to me, is the best thing. It may not be the perfect thing, but it's the best thing that we could do at this point, to help ensure the safety of all the families that are in this neighborhood.
Okay. Any other traffic commissioners? Yes, sir.
On 5E, I have a question on the residence or the property that sits on the southwest corner of Chartel 15, where we're proposing to eliminate parking. I noticed that property owner did not either objected to it or they just didn't sign. And is that a single-family residence? It's multifamily.
We'll have the...
And there's parking behind. Multifamily, and he lives out of state.
Lives out of state, and there's dedicated parking behind the units?
We're the next property to the south, and we have parking spaces all in front of us. We're at 1521 on Chartel, and I'd happily give up those parking spaces.
Okay. So, Sarah, is that good? Did you get an answer? Okay. Any other traffic commissioners talking in specific to 5E or in general to the neighborhood presentation? Anybody?
I'd just say something real quick. I think it's going to pass, but I'm definitely for it. Well, I think it's going to pass. But when a neighborhood comes together like this, I want everybody hopefully to remember, because there's a lot of other little neighborhoods that have come before us that have been voted down, even though they've had 400 signatures. So let's remember, all neighborhoods are neighborhoods, and all signatures count. So anyway, because none of these stop signs meet the criteria that the city likes to meet. So, let's keep going forward with this, not just stop right here. It'd be my 2 cents on it.
Okay. Any other traffic commissioners? Okay. Anybody out in the general public, one last comments or anything? Just want to make sure we have our hands around this whole issue. Anything else that needs to be said on this item? Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield, to approve item 5E. Can I have your votes, please? Item is approved. Okay. We go now to item 5F, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President Johnson and Associates, Inc., to consider a request for the addition of stop control at North Hudson Avenue at Northwest 18th Street to establish all-way stop control. Sir, would you like to speak?
This, along with the next two items, obviously we've covered everything. We don't have anything to add unless you'd like to ask us a question.
Okay. Anybody have any specific on this item? Yes, sir. So if I could have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes. And thank you for filling out a form.
My name is Sam Blackstock. I live at 401 Northwest 18th. That is the northwest corner of 18th and Hudson. There is currently not a stop sign at that intersection. When we first brought this to the commission, shortly thereafter, actually on November the 11th, this picture shows a car accident at 18th and Hudson. One car was driven south down Hudson by a neighbor that's familiar with the neighborhood. The other car that pulled out in front of that car was driven by someone that wasn't familiar with the neighborhood, and she expected that that car would stop. So, of course, she didn't, and of course the cars got tangled up. And of course we had firemen and police officers all there to investigate this accident that would not have happened if we had some consistency. The only other point I'd like to make is that I think it's beholding to this commission that if anyone wants to speak against anything that comes before you, they should possibly disclose the fact that they live on a street, specifically at 1018 Northwest 18th Street, that has 2 stop signs on either end of that block. And so they don't really witness the things that we see going up and down Hudson. As I told you before, I likened it to if you go at 5 o'clock in the evening, if you were to go to hell to find a bat, you wouldn't find one because every bat from hell was flying up and down Hudson, Walker, and Harvey, and they're simply trying to get home to their neighborhood. And we would just like to maintain our neighborhood, and this has everything to do with maintaining a neighborhood feeling. I lived in a neighborhood in Atlanta that had speed humps, and they were very effective. Unfortunately, that's not an option for us, and I think that we would look at that with an open mind. I also think that there are cars that would maybe speed between stop signs, but the majority of these people are law-abiding people, and they just simply lose track of how fast they're going down these stretches of street that go on for 4 and 6 blocks without stop signs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wanting to speak about item 5F? Yes, sir. We already have your information.
I will. Again, I'm Afton Gilly, and I do live at 1013 Northwest 18th. And I don't have a stop sign on either side of my house. I have a stop sign on one side, and I have a stop light on the other side. And yeah, I would say that the likelihood of someone running the stop sign, floating the stop sign, is a little greater than one's not stopping at the stop light. So, like, again, if we're just looking to go to the expense of stopping people and making traffic go slower, you know, if the proposal was to put in stoplights, you know, that would be an option, but I'm not for that either. But I do think that maybe the council should allow the community, the neighborhood, to consider the speed bumps as a possibility for controlling for the speed, and I think that may be a better solution, and maybe it should be postponed and allow the neighborhood association to discuss and maybe come back with a modification of their proposal. And I do walk down 18th Street over to Hudson, and I have been there at all times of the day, so I know what's going on, and it is not as it's been portrayed as far as I can see.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am, please. Do we already have your form? Okay, you can fill that out later. Okay. Oh, that's fine. If I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. My name is Judy Fox Goodrich. I live at 420 Northwest 17th Street in Heritage Hills. I've lived in the neighborhood since 1980, and my first home was in the 200 block of 21st. So, boy, I got the Robinson side back in the early years. And then in 1991, we moved more into the interior, so we thought, but oops, there's Walker. So we've experienced our share of traffic, and you know, I look at the number of young families and kids in our neighborhood. My son somehow, he's 35, he survived Wilson and Classen and walking back and forth to school, but only because he had hovering parents that watched him and dropped him off on many occasions. The other thing I want to mention is, you know, nobody said anything about the squirrels. And I'm not talking about some of the neighbors, but I'm talking about the animals. Possums and raccoons as well. Do you know, I have proof that people are speeding on Hudson. I have proof. Now, it's nothing to see 8 to 10 dead squirrels on Walker between 17th and 13th where I live. But when I see 8 to 10 dead squirrels on Hudson, I know there are people speeding, because squirrels are fast, you know? You guys are laughing. We literally need a dead body disposal officer in our neighborhood at this point. We have so many dead carcasses out there. Just ask the neighbors. Because of where I live on 17th between Walker and Hudson, I can tell you that I have sat at 17th and Walker for as long as 6 minutes trying to make a right turn on Walker. A 4-way stop would help me a lot, you know? And it wouldn't hurt other people much either, but it would help those of us who live in the neighborhood be able to access things outside of the neighborhood. The same with Hudson. And then I notice in Proposal H that 17th and Walker stop sign is mentioned there. So, you know, we've seen people start off from a stop sign and scoot down the street pretty fast. Fast enough to be texting, fast enough to go, oops, and take out one of our cast iron street lamps. Yeah, and actually that young lady admitted to the cops she was texting. I think I'd have said I spilled my beer. It would have had more honor. Thank you.
All right, anybody else wanted to speak on item 5F? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
You've got all the staff comments before you. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5F?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved.
We have a motion to approve item 5F from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion?
I actually have a brief one. The gentleman that's in opposite, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. When you spoke on the previous item, you made a comment that interested me. You made a comment that if these stop signs go in, it's going to cause congestion. I believe I'm quoting you. And what's interesting about what you said is that I think that that's the result the neighborhood wants to see, because congestion is a traffic calming tool. And I just wanted to make that comment.
I believe you're right. It will increase the congestion, and I think it'll also lower our property values. So, because I think people will want to not be in an area where there's so many traffic, stop signs and congestion, and people will look to go to other neighborhoods.
That's an interesting comment as well. I'm not a realtor. I'm not a real estate appraiser. I work very hard in my neighborhood and other neighborhoods in Ward 2. And I think that one of the most important elements of increasing property values is calming traffic in those neighborhoods.
Okay. Anybody else wanting to speak on item 5F? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5F by Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. We go on now to item 5G, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson & Associates, Inc., to consider requests for the addition of stop control on North Harvey Avenue at Northwest 18th Street to establish all-way stop control. Mr. Johnson, nothing? Anybody wanted to speak on item 5G? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
Staff comments are before you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on the application.
Thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5G?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved.
We have a motion to approve item 5G by Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have any talk on item 5G?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Was that one of them that met the commission policy requirements or not? I don't believe it did it?
I don't believe there are any applications in this that are being considered that meet the city's criteria for the use of all-way.
The petition requirements.
Oh, yes. These ones meet petition requirements.
Did, right?
The first three do, yes.
Okay, any other talk on item 5G? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5G by Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Votes, please. All right. Item is approved. We go on now to item 5H, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson & Associates, Inc., to consider requests for 16 stop control items in the Heritage Hills and Mesta Park area. Do we have anybody here that wants to speak on item 5H? Yes, sir.
Again, David Box, 522. I just point out briefly to the question that Commissioner Miller raised. We believe we've met all the criteria. I mean, we canvassed the area. If you can't get a hold of somebody or you have a multifamily building, we don't think that should count against you. Within the 300 foot of every single intersection, we had 98% support. And so certainly there are some addresses where perhaps no one's living there, or it's a multifamily, or the house is just, abandoned. It's an impossibility to get that signature. So when you look at all the factors that Mr. Zitzow went through, we believe we've met that threshold. That's all I'll say.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to state that I think this is excessive, and I think you know my my point on it is excessive. Again, adding to congestion, lowering property values. I feel that at some point, most of these people here in the room will have a change of their heart and may want to come back and ask the commission to remove these stop signs. So, but I'd rather just not have them put all these that have not met the criteria that the city has set for adding stop signs, and there hasn't been shown the need for these things at all based on the criteria that the city's made, and I'd ask for the commission to deny the application.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5H? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
Okay, this is a rather exhaustive item. You've got all our comments before you. When we prepared this item, we just did it because there were 16 parts to this particular one. We just did an analysis over at Ollie and Northwest 21st Street. In this particular case, you can up on the screen you'll see that there's an executive summary based on the city's criteria that it uses when evaluating intersections for always stop control. You can see that none of the locations have met. So action on this item is going to be at the discretion of the commission.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5H?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved, including items 1 through 16.
We have a motion to approve item 5H, items 1 through 16 by Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Do Do we have any talk on item 5H, 1 through 16? I'd just like the staff to explain the 1 stars on 9 and 10 and the 2 stars on 11 through 16, just so it's clear what that's saying.
Okay. Items 9 and 10 were previously considered by the commission, and they were not approved. They were voted on, and there was a split vote, so those items weren't approved. But since it's been more than 6 months since they were originally heard, since it was included in Mr. Johnson's request, they were re-included. And that's the only thing that the single asterisk indicate is that they've been considered in the past. You know, per policy, the commission does not reconsider something within 6 months. This is beyond 6 months, so that's why they were added in. Those items that were marked have 2 asterisks. We went through, we did a rather exhaustive search of the petitions that we had received, and we could not find that there was 67% in support of the application, justified. There were a number of instances where, the petitioners indicated that the residents weren't at home or something along that line, but there just wasn't 67% support that we could find within the petition process. Now, the applicant did say they did like a survey, and they did produce a map, but the survey doesn't come with any information beyond that. So all we have is the petitions to work with. But that's the summary that's the distinction between those two.
That's what the stories mean. Okay, very good. Sir, do you have a comment? Yes, sir.
Briefly, we would disagree. We had an email from staff outlining various addresses needed to hit that threshold. We subsequently provided that to staff. So 1 through 16, we meet the threshold of 67% within 300 foot of the intersection, except for 12 and 15. 12 and 15, again, deal with, you have the multifamily structures, and you have homes that are perhaps vacant. There's just no way to get to that figure. So we believe what we've submitted and confirmed when staff sent us some of the addresses necessary that we followed up with, we've met the threshold on all of them, except for the 2 that we can't.
Okay. Do we have any other comments on item 5H? Anything from out there? Okay. We have a motion to approve item 5H from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5I. Okay, we go on to item 5I. Rusty Knowles, the Director of Property Development, Cornerstone Development, to consider a request to establish 2-hour time-limited parking on the west side of North Walker Avenue from Northwest 12th Street to Northwest 13th Street. Is there anybody here that wants to speak on item 5I? Yeah. If you just wait just a minute, sir, we'll go ahead and let the things clear. Okay, so for item 5I, yes, sir, if I have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Rusty Knowles, 4 East Sheridan. I'm with Cornerstone Development. Our application is just to get those parking spaces between 12th and 13th to 2-hour limited parking. If there's any questions, you can let me know.
All right, sir, thank you very much. Anybody else speaking on 5I? All right, yes, sir, staff input.
Okay, this is actually an item that was initiated several years ago when this particular property developed. They had submitted a request for commission consideration for the addition of on-street angled parking on the west side of Walker Avenue. At that time, when working with that applicant, we had asked if they had any interest in applying for like a traffic or a parking regulation to go along these spaces, and they did not indicate any interest in doing so. Well, since this property's been developed and Mr. Knowles has indicated they've got some retail space that they're trying to get some more turnover for the parking spaces on. All this is doing is instituting a basic traffic control to limit the amount of the duration for parking there. So action on this item would be at the discretion of the commission. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5I?
Mr. Chairman, I move the application be approved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5I. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5I by Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. Sir. We go on now to item 5J, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson and Associates, Inc., to consider requests for two items. One, to establish 2-hour metered parking on the east and west sides of South Hudson Avenue from Southwest 3rd Street, Oklahoma City Boulevard, to Southwest 7th Street, excluding all existing reserved parking spaces for the physically disabled. And two, establish 2-hour metered parking on the west side of South Robinson Avenue from Southwest 3rd Street, Oklahoma City Boulevard, to approximately 250 feet south of the south curb line of Southwest 7th Street. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon again. Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates. Here on behalf of the MAPS office from the City of Oklahoma City as the applicant in this case. We have been working with the consultants on the park for a number of years. This is a long-awaited finish, the finish line. But as part of that, they're getting ready to, they're getting ready to finish Hudson and obviously start the construction on the park. And as part of the park project, there'll be the on-street parking will be constructed on the perimeter of the park. And then some of the improvements on Robinson, for example, that's already widened. But the park will fill this area up, so it'll be a landscaped ramp. And so we added parking here, and of course, everywhere you see the red dash. So I'd be happy to answer your questions on this.
Okay. Anybody else wanting to speak on item 5J? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
All right, you've got all our comments before you. This is somewhat like the previous item. This is a kind of like a follow-on. Mr. Johnson had submitted a request a while back for creating on-street angle parking on the east side of Hudson and establishing some reserved spaces for the disabled on both sides of Hudson. And now we've got a request that includes parking along the west side of Robinson. This will be along basically the two north-south borders for the MAPS 3 downtown park. The only thing that we want to bring to your attention, though, is that at this point in time, this will be something that I guess COTPA and Embark will be dealing with, is that the way the city's ordinances are structured, the metered parking in this area is outside the limits of the downtown core area. And so based on the established rates for metered parking for this particular portion of the city, you'd be paying a rate of 25 cents for a stay of 2 hours. So anyhow, staff comments are before you. Actions at the discretion of the commission.
All right. Do we have a motion concerning item 5J?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve Mr. Johnson's request.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Littlefield. All right. Any talk on item 5J? Yes, sir.
So this new park that's coming, in the planning, the traffic department's mind, this is by far the best way to park along the park. I mean, we're setting the precedent for this new park right now, today, for parking on both sides of it. And so this type of parking that we're getting ready to approve is what you want. Is that right? I want to make sure of that.
This is a request from the MAPS office. We have to present it to you. And all you're looking at today is metered, is whether or not the parking along the east and west sides of the park will be controlled, how it will be regulated. And they've submitted a request that the parking be regulated using meters. Around the Myriad Gardens, meters are used there as well.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So if you've got questions regarding why decision to use metered parking versus any other type of parking control, Mr. Johnson's probably in the best position to answer that question.
I just might add that there was quite a bit of study and discussion about how to best service the park on its perimeters. The park planners that we worked with on this highly recommended the ability to have perpendicular parking. around the park to allow for people to back in, have their picnic stuff, to utilize the park. And we can't get that everywhere, but we are trying to get that on Hudson. So.
Okay, any other questions on item 5J? We have a motion to approve item 5J by Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Have your votes, please. Okay, item is approved. Now we go on to item 5K, Homelita, got it, Homelita McKnight, to consider a request to establish all-way stop control at the intersection of North Stiles Avenue at Northeast 16th Street. Ma'am, would you like to speak? You're the one. And so I'll need your name, your address. You have up to 5 minutes, and when you're done, you need to fill out one of the forms for us.
Homelita McKnight, 315 Northeast 15th, and I am here to request the all-way. We have since revitalized our neighborhood, as you heard all day today, and Homestead Museum used to be right there on 16th. They have since moved, and you enter in on Lincoln Boulevard. And we've taken that spot, and we've made a park for the community there. So in order to enter that community park, you have to cross 16th and Style, where there is no stop signs there at all. Or you have to go up to 16th and Lincoln, or down to 16th and Walnut. We are growing, as you have heard all day today. We have many children in the area now. And so in order to enter this park, which is in the middle of the street, you have to enter in on 16th and Stiles. So you have to cross the street heading north to enter the park, the community park. And there's no stop signs there, so the traffic just goes. And of course, as you hear, there's no stop signs, so they just zoom through and they do use our neighborhood to come from Lincoln to Walnut. There is Sears over there, and so many people use 16th Street to maybe go do their purchasing at the Sears warehouse that's right there, or in the state community, you do have the Capitol areas there that work in that area. And so traffic sometimes is high, sometimes it's not, but in order for us to cross the street heading north, we're asking for stop signs, not only to help control the traffic, but also to have them stop so that we can cross with our families. There is a daycare that utilizes that park now, and so when they walk, there's no stop signs to stop the traffic so they could cross safely. And we may go back and ask the neighborhood association if we would like to have crosswalks put there once we have the stop signs.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Please fill out the form while we press on.
Any questions?
Oh, not now. Okay, anybody else wanted to speak on item 5K? Okay, staff input, please.
All right, you've got our comments before you. The staff comments are really self-explanatory, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5K?
I have a comment I'd like to make, not a motion. There's a yield sign there now, right?
No, sir, there's nothing there.
Well, must be on the wrong.
Yeah, I believe there's a northbound yield sign on
There's a northbound yield
Stiles.
sign coming into 16th. Now, the people accessing the park, is it vehicles or people on foot, pedestrians? Because that's a private drive, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
To access the park there, is it done on foot or vehicles? Because that's
Right
just
there
a private drive.
Right there is it's a foot. You walk into and kind of go left. You can enter in the middle of the block with a car.
And you have a sign there that says "Slow children"?
Slow. We just put those in. Those were just placed in. Slow children playing.
Who did those? Just the neighborhood, or?
Well, we applied for them.
If they had made a request for something along that line, especially, well, what we install typically is like Watch for Children sign. Applicants will, or neighborhood associations or residents will furnish the sign, and if they get agreement from, the adjacent property owners, then
to do that,
the city will pick up the signs from them and make the installations for them.
the reason I'm saying this, ma'am, is that you're so far off from the warrants for a multi-way stop sign as far as the volumes of traffic, and it's just a 3 and one of them's a private drive. Aren't you more concerned about pedestrians just crossing the road and there's nothing like a crosswalk to let people know of that, or?
It's nothing there. I mean, it's just like a street.
I know.
And
I know.
There's nothing there.
But you say there's interest in putting a crosswalk. Why was?
When we get the stop signs. We haven't discussed that. I'm here with asking what our neighborhood association requested us to ask, and those were the stop signs.
Well, I'm going to recommend that the stop signs not be approved because they don't meet our warrants. Now, if you want to come back with a crosswalk sign, I'd be more amenable to listening to that request. Okay?
That'd be fine. I'm
All
just
right.
here to.
I'll make a motion.
We do request the stop signs because the
I know.
east and the west, there's nothing there, and we're crossing the east and the west. So that's just
You're
flow.
crossing 16th, going this way, walking to the park, private drive on this side, but there is a yield sign here.
Unless it's gone, I haven't seen the yield sign, and I go down there quite some time.
Well, it shows up on the submittal, but we'll check that and see. But there definitely will be one if there's not one until one is installed.
And where is it? Is it on Stiles or is it on 16th?
It'd be on Stiles, facing 16th.
Okay, our concern is 16th.
I know,
east and the
but
west,
there is a yield sign.
crossing over.
Okay.
Stiles is this way.
Yes.
And so with that, we were asking for the all-way stop sign. So even if you do come down on Stiles, you stop because the area is growing, and we're asking for the safety for us crossing 16th Street and coming back.
To stop
at-
16th. But right now, there is a yield sign on Stiles. Or you're not sure? You're just not sure. All right, either way, I'm going to make the motion that this not be approved as a four-way stop, multi-way stop. That's what you're asking for.
It's not four-way.
I know, but that's what you're
Okay, it's
asking
not a
for.
four-way. I was requested to ask for the all-way.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
And you have the form to fill out. Good. All right, so we're looking for a motion on...
So I've got a question, though, for a motion. They really want to stop on 16th, right, so they can cross to get into the park more easily. And, but in order to do that, you have to put a stop on Stiles, right? You can't leave a yield on Stiles and then put stops on 16th.
That's correct, you can't.
So that's the reason
Can't
for the
make sense.
all-way. Right, so, yeah. And that's the main and only entrance, or the main entrance anyway, into the park. People are walking through there.
Well, that's the walk-in entrance. There's a drive-in entrance down the way.
That's the walk-in entrance from the neighborhood, right?
And that's what, I mean, it's more pedestrian, they need a pedestrian crosswalk. It meets
Yeah. But
more than anything.
and I guess the question again for staff is, if you need a crosswalk, you need a stop sign for a crosswalk, don't you? I mean, unless you do the button, the yellow flashing or something.
That only applies in the event that you've got like a signalized control. But crosswalk does not necessitate the use of a stop sign.
At a corner?
No, I mean, the vast majority of crosswalks in the city are within neighborhoods, and probably the majority of intersections in neighborhoods are probably not controlled because they're low-volume streets.
Well, right, but most of them don't have crosswalks. I would assume.
They would not be marked. No, the vast majority of residential crosswalks at intersections are completely unmarked.
Right, but if we're saying, well, let's not do a stop sign, let's do a crosswalk, that means we're going to paint a crosswalk and put
Right.
crosswalk signs.
Right. If we were...
The vast majority of those in the city would be associated with a stop sign, wouldn't they?
Not necessarily.
Really?
It's not required.
All down Broadway, there's crosswalks, without any traffic control. But got to be careful when you try to enter those crosswalks as well.
Okay, well.
All right, so we're looking for a motion on item 5K.
I make the motion to disapprove the request as presented.
We have a motion from Commissioner Miller to disapprove item 5K. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Clare. Now we can have some talk. Anybody want to talk?
Yeah, we talk.
I've got a question. We had a discussion a couple of months ago about pedestrians. And when pedestrians cross a street that's not at a crosswalk, they have to yield to traffic. If a pedestrian is crossing in a crosswalk, drivers have to yield to the pedestrian. But my question in this particular case is, how does that work where there's a stop sign? If a pedestrian is waiting to cross the street at a stop sign, who yields to who in that case?
The way Title 47, which is state law, reads is that motor vehicle operators have to yield to pedestrians at a crosswalk, whether the crosswalk is marked or not. Now, I don't believe, and police can probably chime in on this as well, but I mean, if a pedestrian was to just step out at a crosswalk location in a manner that doesn't allow a motor vehicle to stop or yield to their crossing, I don't believe the driver would be found at fault in a situation like that.
I think my question is, if there is a stop sign and a vehicle is approaching the stop sign and a pedestrian is waiting to cross, if the pedestrian crosses and the guy runs the stop sign, who's responsible? The pedestrian, or, well, running the stop sign, of course, is illegal. Let's say he stops and runs over, hits a pedestrian. I'm trying to find out, trying to discover if a stop sign is a safety benefit to an individual trying to cross the street at that intersection. That's my question.
Well, it can be if it is stopping traffic on the cross street, the one that the pedestrian is wanting to go across, naturally it would have a benefit for that.
But the way I've always understood the rule is a vehicle has to stop for someone in the crosswalk. Before they enter the crosswalk, they have to make sure it's safe. A person doesn't have the right to enter a crosswalk and to interrupt traffic.
Exactly. In this case, there's a request for just stop signs for safety of a pedestrian walking into a park. And I'm trying to learn if that would be, if that would provide safety.
That would just stop the vehicle, but there's no listed crosswalk there. Okay, all right. Any other discussion on item 5K? Okay, we have a motion to disapprove item 5K by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Clare. Can I have your votes, please? So it's a push. The motion to disapprove didn't pass, which means it also didn't get approved.
Correct. So you could ask for another motion if you would like, because that one is gone. So somebody on either side might be willing to change their vote.
Okay. Is there another motion on item 5K that somebody would like to make?
The painting the stop, the crosswalks and putting up signs for that, can we just say that now and change this application?
Well, how does
Is that something that can be done administratively?
Yeah, that's the question. Is it an administrative thing to ask for?
Yes, at an intersection, we can add, provided that there are ADA-type facilities like wheelchair ramps and that sort of thing, we can mark crossings and we can put up like pedestrian crossing signs. That's administratively, that's well within our ability to handle. Now, in the future, though, the one thing that the manual cautions is that you don't put additional pedestrian crossing signs at intersections that are like stop controlled. So if that was ever to change, and we
Say that
would take
again,
down,
I'm sorry.
you don't typically put up additional pedestrian crossing signs at an intersection that's got like always on a stop controlled approach. Basically, it becomes redundant.
Are you saying that if we
I don't know.
Or to ever put stop signs up, then the
We
pedestrian
would take,
crossing
we would
come
take the
down.
pedestrian. If the pedestrian crossings are at the same places where the new stop signs are going, yes, we'd take those down.
Oh, I got you.
Or most everyone is going into the park, walking. Gather up and go right across, up Stiles and across 16th and go right into the park.
16th, yeah, off to the left.
Okay,
we
that's
go
where
right
this
into
is at. So you've got wheelchair ramps, you've got sidewalks, you've got everything. I just think you're wanting to protect the pedestrians. We can protect the pedestrians when they show up and not interfere with the movement of traffic, but you see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying, but traffic do speed through there, but I'm looking at your report that says something different, but the average speed is pretty fast through there. So, I mean, that would also take care of the speeders that's coming through there.
Okay, so,
Now we want to control the speed.
yeah, so,
Well, I mean-
ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
we're just going to ask the staff to go ahead and go out there, do a survey, make sure they can put a crosswalk up there, that they can put a crosswalk there, put the signs up appropriate, as long as everything's right, and then they'll go ahead and take care of that. And that's something that they can just do on their own. It doesn't have to come from us. Is that okay? I mean, seeing as you're not getting stopped, I just want to let you know, they'll go out there and look at it, and if it works, they'll go ahead and put a crosswalk up there and mark it. So at least you'll have a crosswalk that then, when you're in the crosswalk, it gives you the right of way.
All right.
So don't step in the crosswalk until the car is stopped for you.
All righty.
Let me ask you one more question before you sit down. My computer's off, and so and I don't remember, did your neighborhood association sign a petition for this?
Yes, and we did turn that in.
Did the majority of your neighborhood want this stop sign?
Yes, that's what they wanted.
They
was the
did.
stop sign.
Do you remember, was it more, were they over the threshold of 67% or whatever that number is?
Yes, they were at 71%.
They were at 71%. Well, I'd go ahead and like to make the motion then to go ahead and approve the always stop, and then we can look at the traffic, I mean, the crosswalk in addition to. I mean, the neighborhood wants it. It's to get to a park. It's for safety of the neighborhood. So I'd move approval of the application.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5K from Commissioner George. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Commissioner White. Any other discussion on item 5K?
I would like for the crosswalk to be included, following through and looking at that and see if it's feasible, and adding that administratively to if this is approved.
Right, but we don't need that on the motion.
No, you do not.
Just a comment, okay? Any other talk on item 5K? All right, so we have a motion to approve item 5K by Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner White. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, this item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5L. Jill Trice, to consider a request to establish all-way stop control at the intersection of Pebblestone Parkway and Carriage Way. Hello, ma'am. If I can have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes, and then please fill out a form when you're done.
Okay, my name is Jill Trice. I live at 12808 Carriage Way. If you did get that street name correct, it actually on the sign says Pebblestone Parkway. It is Pebblestone Parkway. We are requesting that a stop sign be put in on Pebblestone Parkway and Carriage Way. Four-way would be ideal. Right at that intersection, there are two neighborhoods that's the entrance to. Pebblestone Parkway is a curved thoroughfare that connects 122nd up to Memorial and Council Road and the Kilpatrick Turnpike. So there's quite a bit of traffic that cuts through. That's not a problem. It's not the volume of traffic, it's the speed at which they go. At that intersection, there is also a park on, I guess that'd be the north side of Carriageway. And then there's shared greenbelt, fishing pond, and walking trails on the south side. So there's a bit of pedestrian traffic that goes back and forth between the shared spaces of those two neighborhoods. And of utmost concern, there is also a bus stop at that area. And a bus picks up at 8 a.m. in the morning when there are cars flying by on Pebblestone Parkway. The speed limit is currently 25 miles per hour. I have a hard time going 25 miles an hour there because there's nothing else on that mile stretch that really stops or slows you down. So I think having a stop sign in that area will be a deterrent to people gaining up to 45, 50 miles an hour and increasing the safety for the residents of the two main neighborhoods, but there's really 4 neighborhoods along Pebblestone Parkway. And I appreciate your consideration. Any questions?
No, that's fine for now. If you could fill out a form while we're talking. Okay, anybody else wanted to talk? Staff input.
All right, you've got all our comments before you. Based on current city's policy, this would be considered like a non-conforming intersection based on the, since it's got 4 approaches, it's got a total traffic entering volume of 1,566 vehicles per day. The city's policy for a 4-way intersection would be 2,500. One thing about this one is that the minor street volume is just about balanced with the major street volume. That makes it kind of unusual. And this is also just up the road from a 4-way stop that was approved by the commission in 2012. At that time, you had a request from a neighborhood that was for all-way stop at Northwest 127th Street, which is a private street, and Pebblestone Parkway. When we had conducted our study back in 2012, we had determined that the 85th percentile speed on Pebblestone Parkway, in more along this straightened section of it, was running right around 40 miles an hour. At this location, where it's generally kind of in a curve that's just west of Council Road, it's still running approximately 32 miles an hour. Our speed study that we did conduct for this did show that about half the drivers passing through this intersection on Pebblestone Parkway are running about 26 miles an hour, which means that about the other half are running faster than that. And our 85th percentile speed that we observed was 32 miles an hour. So, like I said, it's a non-conforming location, so action on this item will be at the discretion of the commission.
All right, do we have a motion concerning item 5L?
Well, I was thinking about suggesting that just make it a 2-way stop till you pointed out that the fact that just as much traffic almost is going on the smaller street than
right. And let me bring something to your attention. When we went out there and conducted our initial evaluation, some of the additions tying into Pebblestone Parkway had taken quite a number of years to fill up, and so consequently, the approaches on Carriageway did not have any form of traffic control on them. So when we were preparing this, we recognized that, and we issued service requests to have stop signs installed on Carriageway. I'm not sure if they're there yet today, so in that regard, we've already gotten that taken care of. Well, the application before you today basically is to convert that to an all-way stop condition. And Pebblestone Parkway has been one of those unusual roads. I mean, it is not built. Does not have the build or the feel of a residential street. It's got none of the houses take direct access to it. It's got it because it's divided. Each lane in each direction on Pebblestone Parkway is 20 feet wide, but they're just set up for single lane traffic in both directions, and you've got basically a brick fences along the back side. So this road has had the look and feel of something that should be typically posted at a much higher speed. And like I said, when we studied this thing back in 2012, when we had that original request, we determined that the 85th percentile speed on this road is running about 40 miles an hour. It's posted at 25.
I think what you just described is absolutely true. 40 miles an hour does not feel fast at all on that road. But when you have a bus stop there and kids crossing and low visibility because of the curve, I feel like the stop sign is the most important part. But I don't mind the speeding. It's hard to stay under 25 miles an hour in that area.
Yeah. Very hard.
All right, so we're looking for a motion concerning item 5L.
I move approval of the application.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner George. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Clare. Any talk on item 5L? Yes, sir.
Okay, so the city already has down, effective April 5th, 2-foot stop signs on Carriageway, correct?
That's correct.
So we really don't know what effect that's going to have.
Well, as far as speed on Pebblestone Parkway, it should have zero effect.
Right, okay. But as far as overall effect, as far as traffic flow?
There should probably be none, because typically there's probably, the amount of volume crossing Pebblestone Parkway between the two additions, because they're both private streets, is probably non-existent for the most part. Pebblestone Parkway primarily provides access to, well, basically, it comes off Council Road and goes down to 122nd Street. And other than that, it's just got a couple additions that tie into the side of it. So it almost acts like an arterial in some form, really.
Okay. Any other talk on item 5L? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5L by Commissioner George, second by Commissioner Clare. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Yes, ma'am. Okay, comments from citizens. The one that we have is good to go. All right, reports and other items. Let's start with Commissioner Clare.
Nothing to report.
Okay, Commissioner Littlefield.
2 quickies. This is from a citizen. If you're westbound on Northwest Expressway at MacArthur Boulevard and you want to turn left from the expressway onto MacArthur southbound, apparently that light never turns green, according to the citizen. So it has to at some point, but apparently it's locked up for some reason.
Okay, we would refer that to the city of War Acres.
Okay, oh, that's War Acres. Okay, would Britain and Rockwell be Oklahoma City?
That'd be Oklahoma City.
Okay, that one is, the way this driver perceives it is Rockwell should be the primary focus of moving the traffic, not Britain Road. Wanted to share that. Came from a good person. The other thing I wanted to share was, I don't think today could have been a better example of neighborhood traffic calming and the need for a traffic calming program with other resources besides the stop sign. It was a great example. Thanks to all of you for your cooperation in helping that neighborhood get that step done. If you haven't responded to Stuart's questions of the draft plan, please send those in. He just has some specific questions. You can line item and answer them. I think it would be very beneficial if everybody gave their feedback on that. Thanks.
Okay, over to Commissioner White.
Nothing, sir.
Commissioner Hale.
Just a quick comment. One thing I found while sitting on this commission, we're really handicapped because we kind of look at issue by issue under a microscope. The reports that we see are focused in on that. And Stuart and his department does a great job on what they present. But item 5D today, the lady that presented the request, part of her statement was that once you guys changed the speed limit on Western, all of that traffic shifted to Chartel. So really we suffer from the events of unintended consequences. On Northwest 23rd, we honored a request to change the speed limit, and the result was an increase of speed. So many times I have found that going with the city's recommendations a lot of times will not lead to those unintended consequences. And I know that seemed like I was flipping that way a lot today, but it was just because of my concern for what's going to happen whenever we basically shut down Walker and Chartel and some of these other streets. What's going to happen to 23rd? What's going to happen to 13th? What's going to happen to the flow? Because it's going to go somewhere. But anyway, like I say, if there was some way that we could broaden our research out to find out if we are going to cause congestion, what's going to happen to the areas around. Thank you.
To Commissioner Schuline.
Really good comments, Commissioner. I appreciate those. I want just a quick comment about speed humps. I know that came up during the discussion on Heritage Hills, but as we've discussed them so far, as I understand them, I don't think that these streets in Heritage Hills would be candidates for speed humps. There's too much traffic. And we've looked at probably limiting them to volumes of only like 1,000 vehicles per day. So, all these north-south streets in Heritage Hills are far exceeding that now. So I'm just not sure that would be maybe on the side streets, but I think there will be limits on where they're applicable in our rules when we do adopt them.
Well, I think, just to make it clear, I think on the speed humps and that kind of thing, it's at least 1,000. That you want to put it on streets that have a lot of flow, not on the ones that only have 100 or something. I mean, that's just what the report is saying. That we're looking at, and we may receive, and we have some input on. But just my understanding is what they're talking about and thinking about is only at streets where there's a lot. Just because it's a small neighborhood with 400 vehicles a day going through the neighborhood, it's a feeder road in the neighborhood, that may not warrant, because it's not worth the cost. Just something to talk about. That's a future talk.
For sure.
No, that's a good future talk. Okay, over to Commissioner Miller.
No comments.
And Commissioner George.
Yeah, just a quick thing. It's kind of a question comment on the Chartel speed lowering. One of the I forget what it's called, but the point system, and you add it up, and if you're at 150 to 170 points, then you're 31 miles an hour, whatever. Like question 1 in that gives points for lanes in a street, and Chartel got 0 points because they have bike lanes. And to me, it seems like that if you're counting lanes, like the more lanes, the faster you should be able to go, but that doesn't seem like a bike lane should count against lowering the speed. That to me, it seems like it should increase the points if you have bike lanes. You follow me? And I just thought that was an unusual way to set that up.
Well, the person that developed the system specifically notes that if you've got like a bike lane on something, that you count that as an active lane, even if it's just for a bicycle.
Right, I understand. That's what I'm saying. That seems, the fact that it has 4 lanes, that was counted as a 4-lane road. It seems like the bike lanes would make a benefit, or make you think, well, maybe it should be a little bit slower and a little bit faster, because it gave 0 points because it was 4 lanes. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Now, of course, one thing to consider, though, is that typically a bike lane's not fully occupied. And so consequently, if you've got a roadway with a lane and you've got a bike lane adjacent to it, unless there's a lot of bike traffic in it, more often than not, you're probably going to find it's unoccupied, which gives your lane a much wider field, which would kind of give a driver a sense that they might be able to travel faster and more freely on a roadway like that.
The extra width.
Right, it speaks to the width of the road that they've got available.
Okay, thanks.
All right, don't see anything? Counselor? All right, thank you for your help today.
All right, the only thing I've got is, and I believe Commissioner Littlefield talked about this, at the tail end of your agenda under reports from staff, there is an item that I've started summarizing some of the comments that I've received thus far as assembling a traffic calming program goes. You'll see that there is some feedback. As Commissioner Littlefield noted, it's not too late to send me. If you've got additional comments, I would really appreciate kind of getting more, get a broader feel for, what you think may be appropriate. I mean, you can go to the second page of that, and the second bullet on that particular page is like what traffic conditions must exist before a neighborhood can be considered a candidate for traffic calming. The one commissioner responded that they thought that the 600 vehicle per day threshold seemed reasonable, and that would not be a threshold that you would go over top of. That would be like a minimum volume. So if you were a candidate or an applicant and you were seeking traffic calming on your street and you only had like 300 cars a day, chances are it probably would not be considered a candidate for a traffic calming program. You'd need to have a certain volume threshold that you would need to meet in order to kind of demonstrate an issue. kind of like the same thing when you talk about like what the 85th percentile speed is. I mean, you don't want to set a threshold that's so low that's like 2 miles over the limit, in which case there wouldn't be a street out there that wouldn't be, eligible to become a, for a traffic calming program. So, like I said, if you've got any questions, you're welcome to send them my way. I'll be happy to clarify anything that you might have on your mind. And then I'd really look forward to, for those of you who haven't had the opportunity yet to send me any comments, this program, kind of is, well, as you've seen today, I mean, right now with stops being kind of the primary means of addressing things, we need to finish fleshing something out. So I'll need your feedback on that so we can kind of work more towards getting a basic program implemented. And there was also a question that was brought up earlier today about Heritage Hills and the cost for stop signs. The city would build that out of our current inventory. So we'd never make a neighborhood association pay for a regulatory traffic control. We'd never make them provide it because we provide things because when they get installed, then they have an installation date, and it allows us to track how old the signs are so we can make sure they maintain minimum level of retroreflectivity for nighttime visibility. So that's why the city would be the one that's always primarily responsible for that.
All right, the only thing I have is June is a tough month for us. I have some things for that meeting time. Staff has some things. So I'd like to ask you guys, is it okay if we skip the June meeting? And we'll just make notice of that.
You don't need a motion?
Can't have one.
What?
Because it's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda, but we can just change. Yeah, I can ask staff to go ahead and make the change in the actual public notice that right now currently says there would be one, to go ahead and take that off. And then, so the next time we would meet would be July.
No, May is still your next meeting.
What are we, May? Oh, that's right. Oh, May.
You still have a May meeting.
I thought we were already there. All right, so that's right. So we have May. So what we're talking about is June. So is everybody okay with that? And unless something comes up in May that we have to go ahead and meet or something to move something along that's very urgent or something. So let's just, no, we're going to skip.
June.
Thank you. No, I got you that time. All right, so we're going to be here next month in June.
You'll meet in May, not in June.
Thank you.
If that's the pleasure of the commission.
That seems to be the pleasure. All right, so we're adjourned.